So, friends, welcome to the lecture on fascism. So, we are going through fascism lecture series. Our previous lectures were the fundamentals of fascism. Last lecture, the meaning of fascism. Today's lecture is about the key attributes of a fascist society. The key attributes of a fascist society, or how a fascist society look like. So, friends, fascists never believe in a society that is rational. They never believe a society where individuals are thought to be rational. Indeed, you see, for the example, as part of understanding a society being visualized in the fascist scheme. Friends, you might remember last couple of days, Reshma, a housewife in Kerala, came to public attention not for good reason. I hope you remember. But for irrational human behavior, she came to the public attention. Her Facebook behavior shocked all of us. Friends, what she did was that she loved a man on Facebook she had never seen before. She started loving a man she had never seen in person. She knew him only on Facebook. And she had a mysterious lover called Anandu. As I told you, she had never met him. She don't even know that such a man exists at all. She only know that he used to chat with her on Facebook. But she loved the words he typed for her on Facebook. They were chatting, and she was married and had a newborn baby. Upon his suggestion, she killed her own child, a newborn baby. She thought her lover wouldn't like a child in between their romantic relationship. And she killed the child. And police later found the crime and interrogated the lady, Reshma. And Reshma admitted to the police of the crime. But as media report is to be believed, I have read the news that Reshma pleaded to the police that she wanted to live with that man at least one day before being arrested. Look how irrational human beings are. Later, friends, we came to know that the said man on Facebook wasn't a real man. It was impersonation. Two of her very close relatives called Arya and Grishma. There are two other women pretended as if her lover and chatted with Reshma. And she loved these women as if they are the real man called Anantu, her lover. Later, friends, on fear of being caught because Reshma killed her newborn baby, upon their persuasion that these two women committed suicide. Friends, look, two women impersonated as a man called Anantu, and they began to pretend as if loving Reshma, and Reshma also began to love these fake women, thinking that it is her lover called Anantu. Look, a murder happened from the irrational behavior of Reshma. Look, two women committed suicide because of this irrational human act. So we can find these type of incidents, these type of macabre incidents. Friends, you can find this type of macabre incidents only on Shakespearean plays. Only Shakespeare can tell these kinds of incidents. We have it's quite surprising for us to see that humans behave like this. But friends, it is real. This is the real way humans behave. It happened. It is happening, and it will again and again happen in our society. This is what just fascists say, that human beings are, after all, very stupid creature, irrational creature, and worthless creature. So, friends, fascists never believe to create a society of rational men. They never wish to create a society of rational men. That they took all their inspiration from anti-rationalist and counter-enlightenment thinking, which I have told you in my previous lecture. That one of their important sources were Friedrich Nietzsche. And Friedrich Nietzsche proposed that human beings are motivated by powerful emotions, not factual and logical thinking. And fascist sourced that Nietzsche idea of man, that men are motivated by very, very powerful emotions. In a book, Reflections on Violence, written by a French syndicalist, George Sorel. The book was Reflections on Violence. He highlighted the need for creating political myth in society, towards which we have to create a society. We have to mobilize the emotions of people towards that political myth. It is necessary to build a society based on political myth. That is a myth of the general strike, And this is not passive. A myth of general strike is not passive, but that is very active expression of the will of the society. The same way, friends, Henry Bergson, a French philosopher, advanced a theory of vitalism. And his theory suggests that the purpose of human life is to give expression to the life force, rather than to be corrupted by the tyranny of ideas, or rather than to be corrupted by the cold reason or the soulless transmission of what may be called rational thoughts. Rather, you have to submit to a powerful expression of life force. So friends, a fascist society is a society which they create on anti-rational lines. That means they never trust humans there. Rather, they trust a powerful leader, the will of a leader. And you have to make that society submit to that powerful leader. So, friends, in the first place, fascist society are anti-rational society. And as I told in the previous lecture, that anti-rational society is anti-intellectual society. That's why Mussolini, for example, proposed a famous slogan that action, not talk. You all talk, and you all talk based on your conviction, but your conviction are always on false ground. What is important is action. We need a society where people are active force. And Mussolini said, inactivity is death. Inactivity is death. Create a society of people action oriented. And if you have people who are inactive, your society is dead. So fascist addresses the soul of the nation, the emotions of the nation, the instincts of the people. This way, appealing to the powerful emotions of the people, the instincts of the people, you have to build a society by creating political myth, by giving vent to expression of your life force. These are all certain kind of fascist jargon, friends. Fascist jargons, intellectual jargons, life force, political myth, expression of feelings, emotion. These are all fascist jargons. But friends, it's clear that, fascist society is predominantly negative or destructive. Their society is predominantly negative and destructive. And they are very clear about what they want to achieve. That is one distinct, remarkable thing about fascist society is that all the fascist societies and all the fascist-minded people are very clear about what they wanted to achieve. And they are very clear about who their enemies are. That's why I told you in the previous lecture that a fascist society is like an anti-rational, anti-liberal, anti-conservative, anti-capitalist, anti-bourgeois, anti-communist society. So fascist society always think about the darker underside of a so-called rational man. The darker underside of the so-called rational man. Friends, behind all the rational man, behind all so-called beautiful man, behind all those man supposed to be very creative and very so and so things, friends, behind him there is always a darker underside. And fascists always try to address that underside of man. That means, for the fascist, freedom in the society means unquestioning submission to authority. Democracy means absolute dictatorship of the ruler. Progress of the society means constant struggle and war. That means fascists believe in creative destruction of the society. They believe in creative destruction of the society. This is a fascistic worldview. They gives importance to faith, culture, and the idea of an organic community. And such community is to be built by loyalties and emotional bonds forged by a common past. That common past is a political myth. Just like, some political parties in India is saying that we had an ancient past. And they called that past as ancient India. I'm not referring to the name of the political organization, but if you are thinking, you can imagine what I'm telling about. Some political parties in India is arguing that we had an ancient past where we had so powerful rulers, and your Chandragupta Maurya defeated the powerful army of Alexander, who defeated Seleucus Nicator, who came all the way from Macedonia to defeat India. You had such very powerful kings and dynasties, kingdoms, great rulers. So these types of political myth, when said, ordinary and very common people simply submit to these ideas, because people are motivated not by facts but by emotional appeals. And thereby you can build an organic community by appealing to the emotions of the people, and thereby you can demand the loyalty of the people. That's why the Nazi slogan, strength through unity. This is exactly what is a fascist society look like. There is an anti-rational society. And a second point have to keep in mind about a fascist society is struggle. Fascists believe in struggle. Life is struggle, and struggle is life. They eulogize that idea, glorify that idea, that human life is nothing but struggle. Friends, this idea was proposed by none other than the UK-born biologist, Charles Darwin. He had written a book titled The Origin of Species. And that book, he popularized a famous idea of natural selection. That nature has a specific pattern of selecting the right thing from a right combination. And Darwin says this natural selection, or Fascist says this natural selection is not confined only to natural phenomenon. This natural selection also happens in human social world. That is, in order to exist, human beings need to struggle, enter into competition with others. And this idea is called social Darwinism, which I had already discussed in one of my previous classes in the first semester, social Darwinism. And fascists believe in social Darwinism. A fascist society is a social Darwinist society. And struggle is a natural order, and it is inevitable condition of life. Friends, if you don't struggle, you will perish. That's what fascists say. If you keep, inactive, if you keep silent, if you keep not engaged with anything, you will die. You will have a natural death. As Hitler told to the German officers in 1944, in his address to the German officers of his Nazi regime, in a 1944 address, Hitler famously said, "Victory is to the strong, and weak must go to the wall." Victory is to the strong, and the weak must go to the wall. Competition and struggle. It is the ultimate test of war. Hitler described war is the unalterable law of the whole of life. It is the unalterable, unquestionable law of life. War is inevitable for human existence. Weakness, human weakness and disability must therefore not be tolerated. So fascist people, friends, in a fascist society, there is no scope for weak people. They never trust the weak people. And their society has no place for weak people. It's just like what Plato said in his Republic. In Plato's Republic, once children are born, they were kept outside the wall of the polis or republic. And children are kept for 1 week outside the polis. After, only the surviving children are being taken back to the polis. Because Plato thinks that those children who live still after 7 days or 1 week have the natural capacity for survival. Just like that, friends. Fascist society gives no place for weak people. That's why, all the weak people are removed from fascist society. So therefore they had practiced what may be called eugenics. You might have heard eugenics. I think I have told you in one of my previous lectures, eugenics. It's a practice of selective breeding. That means in a fascist society, not all people can enter into procreative life. Then only those people who the fascist society believes that the eligible people can perform the procreative function. Only the fit member of the society should be allowed to procreate. And the weak people should not be allowed to procreate. And the weak people and the disabled people are expelled from a fascist society. For that, they practice eugenics. And eugenics was practiced specifically by Nazi Germany, where mentally and physically disabled people were first sterilized. Forced sterilization of mentally ill people and physically challenged people were first subjected to forced sterilization, and then between 1939 and 49, Hitler systematically murdered all of them. That's why he called it Holocaust. Selective killing of people we call genocide. And from 1941 onwards, Hitler again started eugenics, in which he started killing the Jewish people. Auschwitz. You heard the racial eugenics Hitler practiced in Germany. Friends, the weak people must be removed from fascist society. And a fascist society believe in unending struggle, a restless expansion of their national character. A national character can only be cultivated by conquest and victory. You attack your neighbors and their neighbors. This is what Hitler described in Mein Kampf in a 1925 book. That's why Hitler started invading his neighbors first. In 1933, he started a program of rearmament of Germany. Rearmament of Germany in 1933. And friends, in 1938, Hitler invaded Austria. In 1938, Hitler invaded Austria because they believe that life is struggle. National character can only be established by attacking another society, another people, and their government. So he invaded Austria in 1938. In 1939, he invaded Czechoslovakia. And in 1939, again, he invaded Poland. And he declared war against United Kingdom of Great Britain and France. In 1941, he declared war against UK and France. And France, in 1941, I think, he declared the famous policy of Operation Barbarossa. Operation Barbarossa. What is it? He started even at invading the Russians. Russia is a mighty empire, a very big continent. Russia itself is a continent, a very big, continent. And you might have read from history textbook that Napoleon had a mistake of going to Moscow, and wherever he went, he found that, it was very difficult to go through Russian territory, such a very vast territory. Thereby, he was humiliated by the Russian army, Napoleon. And just like what Napoleon once tried, Hitler also declared what may be called an infamous policy of Operation Barbarossa and started attacking Soviet Union. Then not Russia, it is Soviet Union. And even at the time of his defeat in 1945, Hitler did not abandon the policy of social Darwinism struggle. At the time of his death, he believed in struggle. That's why he committed suicide. He shot at himself. He first shot his wife, Eva Braun, and ensured that she died. Then he committed suicide. He shot at himself. Such a very intriguing personality. So they believe, fascists believe only in struggle. And third point of a fascist society, friends, is that they believe in leadership and elitism. A fascist society never believe the masses. They never believe the ordinary folks, the ordinary humans. They trust only the leader. Leaders are proven. They are proven by the nature because nature has selected them. Social Darwinism. And they rejected the idea of equality. In a society which believes only in leadership and elitism, friends, there is no scope for equality. Fascism is deeply elitist political society. A fascist society is basically a deeply elitist society, and it is fiercely patriarchal. There is no scope for women. Women are just secondary citizens in a fascist society. And fascist society is founded on the belief that leadership is desirable and it is a natural condition. Leadership is a natural condition. And they believe human beings are born with different abilities. Human beings are born with different abilities, different attributes, which gives birth to rare qualities of leadership. And fascists believe there are three kinds of people. A fascist society categorizes their society into three. The people in their society are categorized into three. First, the supreme, all-seeing leader who possesses unrivaled authority. A supreme, all-seeing leader. Second kind of people, the warrior elite. They are exclusively male. There is no scope for female. Their warrior elites are exclusively male. They are heroic people and they are self-sacrificing people. And third type of people, these third type of people are all of us. In a fascist society, these people are, we form that section of the fascist society, and the fascists call the masses. And masses are weak people, inert, ignorant, and their only behavior is to submit to unquestionable obedience towards the leader. You are not supposed to disobey. That is your only quality. So that means they have very pessimistic view about humans. And this kind of a leadership idea was inspired by French philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. I told you before about French philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. And Friedrich Nietzsche proposed an idea called Übermensch. Übermensch, that's a French word, that means overman or superman. Nietzsche believed that there is superman in the nature. A supremely gifted, powerful individual amongst us. There is a supremely gifted, powerful individual. In times of struggle, such people will come over. And he proposed this idea in his book, Thus Spoke Zarathustra. Thus Spoke Zarathustra. That's a famous book written by Friedrich Nietzsche, written in 1884. Thus Spoke Zarathustra. In that book, he proposed an idea of a superman or an overman, that most people are irrational people, but amongst us there are someone that who is very powerful, all-seeing, very powerful human beings. And that superman is an individual who rises above the herd instinct of all the rest. We have the herd instinct that we live in our sensibilities, but a superman will never live in herd instinct, that ordinary human beings instinct. That's why, friends, in fascist Italy, Mussolini proclaimed himself as il Deus. Mussolini proclaimed himself as il Deus. Devika Baburaj, please.
Pink.
Devika, please. Okay, friends. What did I tell you now? I forgot the point. What was the point we have been discussing?
Fascism, Mussolini.
Yes. Mussolini called himself as il Deus. Because il Deus, the leader. Il Deus, the leader. And Hitler himself called der Führer. Der Führer. Der Führer. The leader. And the leader is able to emancipate the masses. So this leadership is basically a Nietzschean theory. A Nietzschean theory proposed by, what I said, Friedrich Nietzsche in his book Thus Spoke Zarathustra. The leader is able to bring emancipation and liberation to people. Friends, and another character of a fascist society is that a fascist society somehow look like a socialist society. What I told you is that, first point, a fascist society is basically an anti-rational society. The second is that a fascist society is characterized by struggle, constant struggle. A third character of their society is that submission to leadership and glorification of elites. The next point about a fascist society is its connection with socialism. And friends, Mussolini and Hitler portrayed their ideas as some form of socialism. Mussolini and Hitler portrayed their ideas as some forms of socialism. And Mussolini himself was a member of Italian Socialist Party, and he was the editor of a socialist newspaper called Avanti. A Nazi party in Germany espoused a philosophy called National Socialism. And friends, it was because they believe neither the big business or capital nor believe the working class. But fascists tried to incorporate the lower middle class into their fold. And the lower middle class rejected large-scale capitalism. At the same time, fascists tried to incorporate some element of working class into their fold. And in a sense, fascists had a distaste for large-scale capitalism. They never trusted in capitalism. They never trusted in big businesses and financial institutions. And second, fascism, like socialism, endorses an idea of collective community. Socialism is also endorsing a kind of collective community, and fascism is also endorsing a kind of collective community. And fascism places community above the individual. And even the Nazi coin, for example, which bore the inscription common good before private good. Common good before private good was the inscription on their coin, Nazi coin. The third point about fascism or socialism is the idea that fascist regimes often practiced socialist-style economic policies. Oswald Mosley, a British fascist, once remarked, capitalism is a system by which capital uses the nation for its own purpose. Look how he defined capitalism. Capitalism is a system by which capital uses the nation for its own purpose. Whereas fascism is a system by which the nation uses capital for its own purposes. Look at the difference. In a fascist society, the fascist state uses capital for the cause of the nation. Whereas In a capital society, capital uses the nation for its own growth. That's why, friends, in 1939, German capitalism was reorganized. German capitalism was reorganized by the Nazi Party under a policy called Hermann Göring's 4-year plan. Hermann Göring's 4-year plan, which was basically a replica of Soviet-style 5-year plan. That means Nazi parties adopted a Soviet-style planned development, which they called Hermann Göring's 4-year plan. But that being stated, friends, socialism and fascism has nothing to do with it, because socialism, fascists were basically against socialism, and their hatred was greater towards socialism than towards capitalism. In a sense, they tolerated capitalism, but in no sense they tolerated socialism. So in that sense, when we think about socialism and fascism, there is no big connection, but their working principle, which seems like something similar. But at the core, fascism and socialism are very different. And finally, friends, a fascist society is ultra-nationalist society. First point is that they believe in an irrational society or an anti-rational society. Second, their society is struggle-oriented. Third, their society is leadership-oriented. And fourth, their society is collective society or a community like socialist. And finally, their society is ultra-nationalist society. What is ultra-nationalist society? That is, they proposes a chauvinistic and expansionist nationalism. My nation best and first, yours not. This type of a hate-filled nationalistic idea they propose. And fascist nationalism is not respect for their national culture and their national tradition, but rather they propose the superiority of their nation. It is not a respect for the distinctiveness of its own nation. Rather, a fascist nationalism is an assertion of the superiority of one's nation compared to other national societies. And Nazis proposed what may be called the infamous theory of Aryan nationalism. Aryanism is the idea that Aryans or the German are the master race. They are created for dominating the world. And fascist seeks to promote more than mere patriotism. So that is, fascist nationalism is not a patriotic nationalism. My nation, my nation, my nation. That is not the way in which a fascist nation works. Rather, a fascist nation operates through militant nationalism. That is, militant national identity. And your national identity is established only if you attack another nation. That is called militant nationalism. They are expansionist stage. That's why Charles Maurras, a famous writer, termed fascist nationalism as integral nationalism. Charles Maurras called integral nationalism, fascist nationalism as integral nationalism. That is, integral nationalism is a hysterical form of nationalism. A hysterical form of nationalism, a messianic or a fanatical mission. Fascist nation has a fanatic mission or a messianic mission that wanted to give rebirth to the nation, reinvent the national pride. They argue that is palingenesis. A fascist nationalism is based on palingenesis, that is rebirth of the nation. What do you mean by the rebirth of their nation or palingenesis? The idea is that fascists believe our present society is bankrupt society. We have cultural decadence. Our modern society is not good society. It is a decadent society. It's a bankrupt society. And what we have to do here? We have to rejuvenate our modern society. We have to bring back our tradition, our glory from the past. That you have to reimagine your nation like a rising phoenix from the ashes. A rising phoenix from the ashes. You have to reimagine your nation. It's possible only if you create political myth, just like what some political parties in India are doing now. They invent political myth to appeal to the emotions of the people. That's why in Italy, you can see Mussolini's fascist regime recaptured the glories of ancient imperial Rome. He glorified the imperial Rome, and he declared that we have to reinvent that glory of Rome into the fascist Italy. And in Germany, the Nazi party tried to portray their government as Third Reich. Third Reich means before that there were two other Reich. One is Charles Magnus First Reich, Charles Magnus First Reich, and second was Bismarck's Second Reich. Reich means a type of government. Charles Magnus First Reich and second Bismarck's Second Reich, and now Third Reich, Hitler's Third Reich. So they wanted to reimagine the nation. And they wanted to conquer their neighbors, to expand their boundaries. Therefore, fascist Italy tried to build an African empire. They tried to build an African empire, and they tried to invade Abyssinia in 1934. They tried to invade Abyssinia in 1931, 34, and Imperial Japan occupied Manchuria in 1931. And this way, they tried to, Hitler, I told you already, how he attacked Poland, Austria, Czechoslovakia. This way, a fascist society functions. So in short, a fascist society is an anti-rational society, a society based on struggle and competition, a society based on leadership and elitism, a society based on collectivity and community ideals, and a society based on what may be called ultra-nationalism by political myth. Friends, that is all about my lecture. I'm going to wind up this lecture. Please, the floor is open for discussion. Yes, friends.
Sir,